Did I seriously talk that long with no sound? Good grief. How about now? Is there sound now? Let's test the microphone. We got sound? Oh, now we got sound. Sorry about that. I guess I had to press the button. So let's start over again. Let me see if I can remember what happened. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Muir, Alberta, and I'm also the Chris in the Chris and Kerry Show. And yes, Kerry will be joining us tonight. He's going to pop on very shortly as soon as he presses the button himself because he's a big boy and he can do it. I know he can. Yeah.
I never
Did
know.
You catch my, did you catch my no sound intro?
No, I did not. I missed that. I totally. Chris says you want to do a live, and it was like, great. Okay, what time? 7. Okay, well, didn't hear anything about 7 o'clock, and then here I am getting ready for karaoke. A completely different change of shirt. Can you come on and pop? Yeah, okay, I'll go change.
Yeah, it's been a busy day. So I was just explaining that we are going to have Dr. Gary Davidson on later on this evening. It's going to be around 8:30. He's actually traveling right now.
Okay.
And I had explained silently, like a mime, that Gary Davidson is the chief scientific advisor to the premier regarding pandemics. So what Gary did is he compiled a report after like a year and a half, 2 years almost, of digging into what happened with the restrictions, the mandates, what the government did, what they should have did, among other things. So we're going to talk about that tonight. And Kerry, I've read a bunch of that report. I don't know if you have, but
I've gone through a little bit of it.
Enlightening.
I'm not even going to comment on it because it is so massive. And actually, what I'm going to do is just present that. If anybody,
don't present it yet. Oh, okay, you can.
Oh, damn it! Okay, I'll turn it off.
No, it's fine. That's fine. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that later anyway. But this episode, Kerry, I don't know if I told you this. I don't really tell you anything. Yeah, we're gonna watch an old episode of Webster.
Webster.
Do you remember Webster?
I do remember Webster.
That Irish fella. I barely remember him because I was really little at the time.
You would have been
when this video.
4. No, when were you born? 77, 75?
79, yeah. So I was 2 years old when this particular episode aired. Not even. I was like a year and a half. And you're not going to believe it.
Okay, let's do that. I was going to say I was like 32 at the time, but that's another story altogether. So yes,
it's absolutely unreal. So yeah, folks, I did mention earlier that we're going to be talking about the report that was just published on the Alberta government website. We're going to get to that after this. It actually worked out really good because I've been really excited to watch this show with you guys and kind of talk about it. You're not going to believe how similar it is to what's going on today. So Kerry, unless you have something, I'll put it right up.
No, put it right up. Let's go. Let's do it.
Sounded really bad. Okay. I guess I should have done this first. Webster full episode. And here we go.
There we go.
I love the graphics. Can you hear it, Kerry?
I can.
Okay, good. And it's just bringing back such fond memories of the 80s. Terrible cars, terrible clothes, terrible hair, but we had so much fun.
Are we supposed to be setting like Mystery Science 3000 and
I think so.
A train looks like it could be right now. That hair could almost look like right now. Telephone, maybe not so much.
What's that hanging off the telephone? I've been stuck to it.
I've never seen that before in my life. I don't know what's going on. Webster.
Good morning. Prime Minister Trudeau, who is presently doing his imitation of Joe Clark on his world trip, is credited with having said on one occasion that he came into Confederation to save Quebec and that somebody else would have to save the West. Well, here's what might happen to the West if a man and his organization in the studio this morning have their way.
1981.
They could split the country. Elmer Knudson is his name. Rancher, businessman, farmer.
Fancy
and as far as I...
So here's an interesting point. Elmer Knudson he's passed on now, but was the uncle of Lois Beale.
Really?
Albert Beale's wife. He's on the board of the UCP provincial party or provincial board. Pardon me.
You can see from here he'll argue with me, a separatist. Also in the studio this morning is a man who is fighting hard with Ottawa, but who is, I believe, still a committed federalist. He is Bob McClelland, the Energy Minister for the province of British Columbia. And he's going to tell us why he's collecting extra money from us on our gas bills and not giving it to Ottawa until a court decision is made on a certain action.
Sounds familiar,
First,
doesn't it?
Bob McClelland, after the break.
After the break.
Look at that rig. Beautiful sight.
They still look the same.
One must have a little giggle sometimes before one starts a heavy interview. So to Mr. McClelland, I'm going to say, is it not a fact, Bob, that you were once a radio announcer in Langley?
Guilty.
Is it correct that you are about to leave the cabinet to take up a hotline show in Chilliwack?
Not guilty.
Why not?
The money's not good enough.
Everybody else is
I'm
doing
in
it.
politics for the money, you know.
And you're going to stay in politics.
No, I'm going to
Nothing's
stay in
changed.
politics for a while anyway. I'm not a career politician, but I'm going to be around for a little
You're
while.
gonna say, were they honest back there?
And certainly I'll be running in the next election.
Somewhat.
How little a while?
Well, that depends on other people, not me.
Anyway, poor old Rafe. Eh?
Well, Rafe, you know, we have, every one of us has two responsibilities.
a
One's
tiny
to our
cup.
public life and one's to our private life. And sometimes you make a decision that you think is best for your private life.
Let's
And I
get
think
on-
that's what Rafe has done.
Let's get on to business. In November the 1st, you put up everybody's consumer gas bills in this province by 30 cents a 1,000 cubic feet. And you
Whoa.
are now collecting that money. What are you doing with it?
Well, at the present time, Jack, we're putting that money into a separate trust account. Hydro is putting that money into a separate trust account, interest bearing, and it will be held until the determination of the differences that we have with Ottawa over its excise tax on natural gas.
When it's so perfectly clear in the BNA Act that Ottawa has the power to impose this
The
tax,
BNA
how
Act.
dare you do such a thing unless you're bound and
Because they didn't
determined
have
to
the
continue
Constitution Act
to
82
with
yet.
Ottawa?
How dare I do what?
Hold back the federal tax which is being levied by them.
Well, you're saying that it's clear that Ottawa has the right to impose that tax?
So the
Well,
feds say.
Well, of course, so the feds say, but we say that, first of all, there is no law in place at the present time which imposes that tax.
Can I
There's
pause that,
simply
Chris?
a motion on the order paper which may or may not be passed by Parliament.
I just happen to, I'm going to be doing kind of the techie stuff in the background here. And I just happened to look up what the cost of electricity was back in 1981. It's 5 to 7 cents per kilowatt hour. And
That's
now,
only half what I'm paying.
yeah. And now in 2025, it's about 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So I'm not quite sure why the energy has not gone up exponentially.
I
But they
can
were
tell you
talking-
why.
Yeah.
Access and technology.
Oh,
Our access
yes,
to MG
yes.
is like probably 30 or 40 times what it was back then. And our technology has increased by leaps and bounds.
I'm going to just, while we're waiting, I'm going to look up the cost in natural gas and see what the difference was back then. 262 per gigajoule. Did I say gigajoule?
You did. I'm surprised you didn't say gigawatt.
1.21 gigawatts. And then, yeah, so 262. And Alberta now is $1.89.
Yeah.
There you
Access.
go. That's
You'll hear in this episode they're talking about maybe running out of oil and gas. So back then that was one of the things they were worried about, running out of resources. And now, as we know, it's very likely that we won't run out. There's just so much that it should be almost free. So anyway, you'll hear that later on.
Yeah, continue.
May be changed by Parliament before it gets passed, if it does get passed. And secondly, there's more than one section of the British North America Act. There's a lot of sections, and one of those sections, first of all, to go back to our entry into Confederation, British Columbia in 1871 was guaranteed the right to its own resources. That included the exploitation and development of those resources and the control over them. And secondly, the BNA Act also says that the federal government cannot directly tax another government. One of the provinces.
We're talking about that in Alberta right now.
Our contention is that under that section of the Constitution, we're being illegally taxed by federal government, even if that motion is passed.
How much money is involved?
Well, there'll be total probably for the public for hydro of around $150 million between now and 1983.
Which
So
is a
that's
big
about
kick in the
700
teeth to
million
your
right
budget.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a tremendous assault on our budget and our opportunity to collect money to pay for the services that we require. People have to remember, Jack, that we've always used our natural resources as a means of gaining the kind of revenue that we need to supply our social services. And if somebody comes along and just takes a chunk out of them, that's a tremendous disruption to the way in which we've planned both our economy and our delivery of social services.
More than that, the
1981.
increased price of the gas at the border is hitting very hard on your BC Petroleum Corporation revenues.
Well, that and other things. Of course, that's a separate issue from the domestic gas prices. But yes, we've had a tremendous shortfall in this past year based on a number of things. One of them is a real glut of American gas on the market now. They're finding gas like crazy in the United States because the economic climate is so good.
And they've deregulated them.
And they've completely deregulated their oil and gas industry in the States. They're finding gas. That's a short-term situation. There's also a glut of the heavy fuel oils available too, and that hits our customers more than any other producing province. Because
is it because
he said short term because they anticipate that they find gas and they deplete the reserves and then they don't have the gas anymore. So it's a short term fix, right? It's not like the wells that we drill here are, especially like our horizontal multi-stage stuff, they produce 100 times as much as the wells they drilled back then did.
Okay, good enough. Good to know.
As our customers in the Northwest United States are able to use that heavy fuel oil, which gets sent out of California because California's environmental regulations are so strong.
But you have another embarrassment. You have been hinting strongly, your government has, and it's been expected that you were going to increase on your own hook the price of the gas to consumers here, because as I recall what you told me the last time, you've been subsidizing the consumers of natural gas in BC by something like $100 million a year. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's correct.
When will you therefore, are you now being prevented from raising the price on your own account to the consumers in BC?
Well, I think realistically, there will have to be some increase in the domestic price for British Columbia for natural gas.
So pause that
subsidizing natural gas to our domestic consumers.
So that's also a reason why the cost of gas probably was so low, if you want to call it that, back then too, is because it was being subsidized by the government, wasn't it?
Yep. And rightfully so, because the people of the province of British Columbia, they should benefit from the resources, right? We own the resources.
Yeah.
The people, well, pardon me, technically, the Crown holds the resources in trust for the people, but the people are supposed to be able to use them. So there's no reason why in Alberta we should be paying market price for our services, except for the corporations that exploit and produce and retail the energy. Why would they sell for anything other than market price? Because that's what they can get.
Agreed. So the infrastructure that the government probably would have put back in the day, pre-1981, is still being used. And the gas is now cheaper, was cheaper there. Well, I mean, relatively cheap back then. And it really has not gone up that much, probably because now we've paid off the infrastructure in order to continue on. But of course, well,
you never really paid.
The cities would have grown, and we would have needed more infrastructure anyways.
Right, but you never really pay the infrastructure off. I mean, it's all got a lifespan. So your infrastructure costs are always going to be, they don't change a pile. I mean, except for if you build a big government-owned gas facility, well, that would count. But the pipeline stuff like that, there's a lifespan on them, so it kind of keeps it just keeps going.
Okay, continue on.
And he's going to talk some about that later on too.
Okay.
Sure. Well, primarily through the sale of export gas, and that's a situation that I believe will always prevail in British Columbia. We will always attempt to keep the price of gas at reasonable levels for British Columbia consumers, and we would hope we'd be able to pay for it through other sales. But as I told you last time, Jack, I think the hearings were just about to begin by the British Columbia Utilities Commission. Those hearings were kind of thrown into a cocked hat because of the National Energy Program, and we've had to hold off a bit in order for producers and others to get new submissions in because of the impact of the Federal Energy Program. But I expect that we'll get a report from the Utilities Commission within the next 6 weeks or so, and I don't doubt that there'll be a recommendation for some increases. I don't know what the magnitude of those increases
Within 6 weeks, you expect a recommendation about an increase in the price of domestic gas to consumers on top of the 30 cents increase as of last November.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, how much will it go up, do you think?
I have no idea, Jack. I know that it's seriously underpriced at the present time. You see, the problem is here we keep getting kicked in the teeth by by things over which we have no control. We just had the National Energy Board, for instance, approve another cost of service increase for West Coast transmission.
Who are your carriers?
There are carriers. We have no control over them. They're controlled by the National Energy Board, their prices, their regulations, and it's passed on simply to us
So that's
as consumers.
When they add on the 30 cents on the energy program, which you say is not yet law, and they give the increase in the allowance to West Coast transmission, that all comes out of hydro revenues and out of your revenues.
Yes, out of well, for natural gas, in terms of the West Coast, it comes out of British Columbia Petroleum Corporation.
What's the climate
revenues.
like with your opposite numbers now in Ottawa? Because Bussière, the Minister of State Finance, was quite blunt the other day when he said, hey, you got to pay McClelland. You can't hold back this money.
Well, you know, I guess he was reacting in an acting position at the present time. I don't think Ottawa has yet formulated a position. McClelland yesterday, as a matter of fact, said that they hadn't decided how to deal with our position. I'm not positive, but I understand by news reports yesterday that Alan Blakeney of Saskatchewan has also indicated that they will not be remitting the tax.
So
you
three
know,
of you really got your feet stuck down.
Well-
Alberta has got a test case on 3 wells or something.
yes.
You're refusing to pay the federal
Aye,
gas.
lad.
Blakeney is now making sounds about not paying his tax.
Yes.
Doesn't look good, does it?
Well, I don't understand why Ottawa will not finally realize that the West is extremely concerned about this whole energy situation.
So back then, even back then, under the, I use the term loosely, leadership of Pierre Elliott Trudeau,
Yeah.
the West was saying things like, when is Ottawa just going to get it through their heads that this isn't any of their business? It's not their jurisdiction. We didn't enter into Confederation under these circumstances or for a deal like this.
No,
They're fighting
not
the
at
same
all.
battle.
1905, we hadn't even discovered oil, I think. Oil,
No, we did. It was
thought it was
18. It was in the 1850s.
okay, I thought but in Alberta, because I thought it was like
Oh, in Alberta, it was like, I don't know,
1914, I think
it was
is what
pretty
it was.
early, 14 or 16, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He's actually going to mention that right away.
Okay, well, then let's continue on.
I think it's the first time in history that Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia have come together in such a solid fashion. We have now also got approval from the chairman of the Council of Energy Ministers, who is the Quebec minister, to call together all of the energy ministers of Canada so that British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Alberta can put their case to them to show what we want to show, Jack, is that we're not in this simply because we're concerned about the West. This program of the federal government is going to be a disaster for Canada, all of Canada.
More with Bob McClelland, Minister of Energy, after the break.
Just like Trudeau's proposed tariff response. Let's stop energy going from the States and cut off our nose to spite our face, sacrificing Alberta.
Bob McClelland is,
14.
of course, the bearer of the usual good tidings as our cost of living goes out of sight. They're holding back the 30 cents that they're collecting for the federal government on your natural gas bills, but within 6 weeks, he expects a recommendation to increase the consumer gas prices. Will you hold off increasing consumer gas prices until the court decision is made on your refusal to pay the feds their money?
Well, if we get a recommendation to increase the prices, I don't think it would be prudent of us to hold off in those terms, Jack. I think that, you know, a cheap energy policy is folly to begin with. It's been proven in, even our experience as compared to the United States. We are the worst energy hogs in the world. And part of that reason is because we have the cheapest energy in the world. So we're going to have to pay more for our energy, including natural gas. But I think I can guarantee that natural gas will always be substantially below the costs of other fuels.
In other words, politically, the government of BC will always subsidize to some extent natural gas.
So long
Even
as
although your policy is that you'd like to see oil prices go to 75% of the Chicago market.
Well, we'd like to see our gas prices go to a certain percentage of the world market too, but I think it will always be, as far as this government is concerned, somewhat below the price of oil and probably below the price of electricity as well.
On the energy budget program, are the feds being deliberately obstructive or provocative in any way?
Yes, they are, as a matter of fact. Well, the whole program is provocative. The intrusion into provincial jurisdiction is provocative.
Yeah, but what are they doing now in setting
well,
up their programs which annoys you?
Let me just say what, this program has a laudable objective, which is energy security for Canadians. The problem is that it will fail if it's kept in its present form.
And
The first move that the federal government made to so-called Canadianize the oil industry was to, through Petrocan, buy a company in British Columbia called Merit Oil.
Right.
Merit Oil is a totally owned Canadian company.
Right.
That doesn't Canadianize the industry. It may federalize the industry, Jack, but it does nothing to Canadianize. It spends a lot of money. It doesn't get us one more barrel of oil. It doesn't get us one more cubic foot of natural gas. The second thing they've done in terms of their oil compensation program is they've set up a new office in Calgary with 70 employees to administer a very small program in terms of its needs in the bureaucracy. And the third thing they've done, and I just learned about this last night, as a matter of fact, in terms of their off-oil conversion program, which is part of the program is the subsidization of pipelines for natural gas, the conversion from oil to natural gas, which was to have been a partnership program between the provinces and Ottawa.
Right.
They have now decided it will be an Ottawa program. Ottawa will decide what the best conversion program is for British Columbia, for Quebec, for Saskatchewan, whether or not the needs are met. But if the political needs of Ottawa are met, I suppose that will be the way the program will
Explain
work.
that to me a little bit. What do you mean a conversion program? Is this for the bureaucratic adjustment of oil supplies?
No, this is for the actual conversion, Jack, from the fuels which are most scarce to those which are not. Changing oil furnaces to gas furnaces, for instance, which is a program which has been extremely successful in British Columbia already. In fact, the funny thing is that the government is stressing that program in BC at a time when we can't keep up to the conversions we've committed because we can't get tradesmen, for one thing. And it's just a crazy idea. It's now all going to be run from Ottawa. No partnership with the provinces whatsoever.
With an office in Calgary?
No, I don't know what their office will be in Ottawa, I guess, for this one.
Now, Chevron this morning have applied to the feds for some offshore oil drilling permission. Does that put your nose out of joint?
No, because at the present time, offshore is still a jurisdiction of the feds, although there's some jurisdictional dispute there. But the federal government has a moratorium on offshore drilling on the West Coast. And what Chevron has asked is that moratorium be lifted so that we can get to work and put some environmental guidelines in so that Chevron can go to work and drill offshore.
So therefore, you're not in the same position as Peckford, who says, I want all the oil from the offshore Newfoundland fields.
No, yes, we are. British Columbia has made its position very clear. We feel that the resources offshore belong to the provinces. Joe Clark was ready to give them to us at the time he was defeated. And now we have a couple of court cases pending on offshore resources, and also it's part of the constitutional debate as well. But we don't.
So listening to Brian Peckford talk about that when he got the rights, so that Newfoundland got the benefit of the offshore drilling, that's just a fantastic story. And talk about a premier that stood up for his province, and it seems like back then the British Columbia government was trying to stand up for themselves too, but obviously never went anywhere because I don't think one well was ever drilled offshore in British Columbia. But they have huge reserves, massive.
They just haven't exploited it.
They won't. Yeah.
Don't want to hold anything up because of that, because Chevron believes they've taken over the old leases from Shell on offshore, and they believe that there's a tremendous potential there for massive amounts of natural gas at least, and perhaps some oil.
You mean a kind of North Sea drilling program?
Yes.
Do you want to see it?
Oh, I think we have to look for the sources of our energy security wherever we can, and if we can fulfill all the environmental requirements, yes, I think we should be moving ahead there.
Speaking of environmental requirements, Dome and others are presently, I think, at your door, seeking guidelines or something to put up a big LNG port, liquefied natural gas. Where does that
It's like the news from today.
Well, Dome and some Japanese partners have put forward a very, very preliminary proposal to us. They have not yet applied officially for either environmental guidelines or anything else. I expect they will, but at the moment it's quite preliminary. Although Dome has its customers lined up for part of the proceeds, and it has its partners all lined up.
Mind you,
There are many others. There are about 4 others.
LNG is a great hazard, isn't it? I see stories that, you know, it's like an atomic bomb if an LNG place goes up.
They've been shipping LNG all over the world for many, many years, Jack, and I'm not aware of any major disasters ever happening. Certainly, it's a commodity which has to be handled very carefully, and certainly it's a commodity which cannot be considered in this province without the strongest environmental guidelines. But I believe that we can develop that as the first step towards our major petrochemical industry in this province.
Mind you, you don't seem to be fighting, despite what you said this morning, relationships with the feds don't seem to be brutal enough to make you want to join the West Federation.
No, that's not my position, although I would take issue with your opening comment in which you called me a committed federalist. I think I'm a committed Canadian. I'm a committed Canadian in terms of the kind of constitutional arrangement we have now in which the provinces are equal partners with the federal government. I don't...
Are they?
Where have you heard that before? You know, this is exactly what we're saying. People call us separatists because we believe in the referendum, which is a constitutional provision. We believe in Alberta taking back every sovereign jurisdiction that we have.
Every province should. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and that is an absolute Canadian thing, because that's what was given to us in our Constitution, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Consider that to be federalism. That's what Mr. Trudeau wants right now, is a federalist state in which the provinces are stripped of their power. I don't believe in that.
Next question. If Trudeau gets his way, will that turn you into some kind of separatist?
I've never considered being a separatist, ever. I believe in, as I do in my personal life and in my political life, in fighting for the things I believe from within the system, and I intend to continue to do that. I do not want, though, however, to see Mr. Trudeau get away with the changes he wishes to make in the basic fabric of Canada.
And he did.
Under the terms he's laid down at this present time.
If Trudeau gets his way, therefore, will you become a non-federalist?
Well, I'm not a federalist to begin with. I'm a Canadian. I believe in the partnership of Canada and its provinces. Trudeau does not any longer.
Bob, can you ever see yourself becoming any kind of Christie-type separatist?
No. And I don't think it'll ever become necessary.
Don't you think we'll just muddle through for another 10 years, fighting and squabbling and tearing each other apart, and come to another middle-of-the-road compromise?
Well, I suppose we might, but that's not so bad. We've come through well over 100 years on that basis where, you know, you're going to have squabbles with the federal government if the provinces have equal power. And that's not bad, in my opinion. It's provided us with one of the best damn countries in the world, and I think we can continue to have that.
My thanks to Bob McClelland. The next man up is Elmer Knudson from West Fed. What do I do with him? What do you think of him?
It's your show, Jack.
What do you think of him?
Well, I've met...
You're an old radio man.
I'm an old radio man. I met Mr. Knudson for the first time today, and he's a handsome-looking gentleman, and I'm sure you'll have an extremely interesting
When I see
program.
Clancy, the old social credit PR man with him, I begin to worry.
Oh, why?
Well, you know, social credit are regarded as politically unstable.
Oh, Jack, you know, if you believe everything you hear on television or read in the newspapers, you're in deep trouble, as you know. But
Especially
the Social Credit Party does not believe in separatism. We are Canadians, but we believe in a very strong Canada with equally strong provinces. It's the only way we can survive.
Fight to the better end within the democratic process and let the majority have their way.
Yes.
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 My thanks to Bob McClelland. And he's not going into the radio business. He's staying as the Minister of Energy in the BC cabinet. Next, Elmer Knudson, West Fed.
Someone asked if Trudeau Sr. got his way. One of the things that Bob McClelland was talking about was the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in the Constitution Act 1982. Yeah. That's one of the things they didn't want Trudeau to do, because actually, the next guest, Elmer Knudson, is going to discuss that a little bit, and it's the same thing we've said at quite a few APP meetings.
Yeah, and again, the statement that they say, he said it, and we've heard it many times, is the will of the majority, or something to that effect, right? And the problem is the East has the majority, so no matter what, we will not have enough representation in government. We will not have as many seats. We will not have judges appointed, and et cetera, because the East is so heavily weighted in terms of population.
Yeah, and they've been trying to fix this for forever, since Confederation's been a thing. And they've tried all sorts. Yeah, exactly. They've tried all sorts of different things. They've failed. We have failed. It kind of culminated in the Reform Party with the West Wants In. That failed. And here we are. What is that? 44 years later.
Yeah.
40. I'm going to be 46 this year. 44 years later, and nothing has changed. I think we need to do something different. Anyway, here comes Elmer Knudson.
Okay.
I love the music and the typewriters in the background. Can you hear the typewriters?
And the telephones. It is the People's Court. Absolutely.
About 8 minutes.
I decided not to go.
See, even live TV, they did exactly what we did.
Yeah.
To make Elmer Knudson of the West Federation feel at home, I put on my fleur-de-lis Quebec tie this morning, sent to me as a gesture by Premier Levesque of Quebec. Now, does that make you happy, Mr. Knudson?
No, well, it looks pretty nice on that suit, you know. I mean, you got blue all over the place. I guess that's blue sky.
Are you planning a separatist tie for West Federation?
We're not separatists.
That's brilliant.
Now, come on now, Mr. Knudson. West Federation has got a logo which shows the 4 Western provinces apart. Now, if you're not separatist, what are you?
We're trying to form a Western Federation. Now, that's not separation. That's Western Federation. It has been no federation in Canada, so therefore we're going to start.
There has been no federation
Just
in
give me that
Canada. He
again.
leads with.
A Western Federation. 4 provinces.
Yes.
Run from where?
Well, run from the west, where it should be.
Not run from Ottawa.
No, well, that's the problem. Ottawa is trying to become a unitary state in this country, and they're trying to revert the provinces back to colonies, and they're driving us to the position where we have to try to protect ourselves. And by protecting ourselves, we have to begin federating, so at least we can speak as one voice out west here.
I don't want to be unkind to you, and I'm really trying to be an honest reporter. You want the 4 Western provinces and the 2 territories to confederate.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, to confederate, you've heard about the co-ops. In order to be to confederate anything, you have to be separate, sovereign, independent communities or provinces or colonies or whatever you call it.
I've got that.
And you have to then have an agreement amongst yourselves to agree to forming a federal government, and you give up some of your authority to that federal state or government in order to run the international affairs. Or whatever.
I've got it. You want to dismantle the present federal state, which you think is going unitary, and set up a new collection of states, one group of which will be the 4 Western provinces, who might speak to Ottawa on the odd occasion.
Well, I don't like the way you put it because it's not true.
Put it your way. Put it your way. Because you see, I'm quite honest about it.
Yeah.
I regard you. Matter of fact, aren't you in total sympathy with Christie for the Western Canada concept, the guy who got all the thousands of people out on the prairies?
Mm-hmm.
Are you in sympathy with Christie?
Well, I have the same problems, or we can enunciate the same problems, same wishes of the West, but he wants to form a unitary state. And of course, that's the same thing as Trudeau wants to form. And we're not we don't address ourselves to that because we say the provinces and provincial governments and the regional differences out here are normal, and they are the title holders to the property, and therefore we want to work through the title holders of the country, which are the provinces, really.
Now, look, I don't want to misrepresent you in any way, shape, or form. Let me do this again.
I like this.
West Federation is your brainchild.
Not mine alone. I wrote the letter in the first place, and a lot of people came. I got 3,800 letters in 6 weeks, and it's been then a committee from then on, and we have formed it together as a.
All right.
So I'm the founder, but
So you've got West Federation, the 4 Western provinces,
right,
separate, equal, and sovereign.
Yes.
Forget the territories for the moment. Would form a confederation.
Right.
How would they break the political and administrative tax chains with Ottawa? How would they do that?
Well, that would be up to a constituent assembly once it's decided. You see, this is a country without a constitution. So the first thing you have to do if you form a federation is to get a constitution. Now, Canada don't have a constitution, never did have, and now Trudeau And that's the problem, is trying to establish a dusty old British North America Act that was designed and written by the Colonial Department in Great Britain as our Constitution. And the Constitution, as you know, Jack, belongs to the people. It's instructions by the people to the government on how it shall operate.
So therefore, you say that the British Parliament has no right whatsoever, even if it's asked by Trudeau, to send this old piece of paper back because it doesn't matter.
That's right.
In other words, all the British link is of no concern.
No, with the Statute of Westminster, they raised all of the provinces to equal status with Canada, with Great Britain, and dissolved the government, which was the Governor General.
Question: is it Trudeau you hate or the Liberal Party? Which one do you hate the most and why?
Well, I have absolutely no use for Trudeau. Never did have, and he.
Why?
Well, for the simple reason that I have read all his books. I knew of him when he was writing in the Cité Libre. I knew when he was writing in the Liège Rassemblement. I know that he has called himself a citizen of the world. I know that he has Marxist overtones, and his policy is for social democracy. I've known all these for a long time, and he's systematically doing exactly what he said he was going to do. This guy hasn't lied to the Canadian people. But the Canadian people
Unlike his son.
never believed him, apparently, because it's well documented of all of his escapades.
Okay, describe him politically from your point of view. Put a label on Trudeau from your point of view.
He's a left-wing, so far at the left that even the NDP don't want him or didn't want him.
He's left of the NDP.
Right.
You wouldn't say he was a communist.
Well, I don't know if he's ever been a communist, but I'd say he has Marxist leanings, that's for sure.
He had his communist
I
card, didn't
don't trust him for 5 seconds.
Well, how has he been able to con all the big money boys on Bay Street and the conservative elements of the Liberal Party? How has he been able to hold this incredible drag and come back from the political dead after Clark committed suicide and take the reins of government again?
Oh, well, as far as I'm concerned, it was all planned. He never did intend to resign. I mean, that was just a ploy. And they got this budget thing going, and he come back. I think we give the credit of this to McClelland and a few of those guys there, but he masterminded it. Trudeau.
Machiavellian.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
None.
Next, I want you to convince me to become, well, I don't know what you want me to become. A separatist.
No. The thing is that we are being forced by Ottawa to make some hard decisions. We do not want to be a colony of Ottawa any longer.
Or of Britain.
Or of Britain.
Elmer Knudson, West Federation, after the break.
So, Kerry, did you catch? Let's hold on. Let me just a little further. And there we go.
Well, I like that.
Did you catch what he said about Canada doesn't have a constitution, never had one?
Never had one. Yeah. So the BNA Act was not a constitution, and
no, it wasn't.
And it sounds like basically they went back to the BNA Act, which I've called up, but we can look at it to say that was going to be their framework for the Canadian Charter of Rights. So,
did you watch that video, Canada: The Illusion?
I have not watched that yet. No.
You should watch it.
I know.
It's pretty good. Like the whole conversation about Canada's not a country, the Constitution's not real. I shrugged that off because at the end of the day, if the idea of a country is a figment of the inhabitants' imagination, it doesn't exist except for in the minds of the people. And if they agree it exists, and that's right. What we live under, right?
That's right.
But
yes.
What the Canada: The Illusion talks about is, as I can't disprove it yet, and that's one of the things they mention. We didn't have a constitution. The BNA Act was an act of the British Parliament that told us how we were going to be independent or self-governing. It didn't give us independence, and it wasn't our constitution. A constitution is a document by the people that tells the government how they have to engage with the people and what they can do. That's it. As a free person, the government cannot tell me that I can't own a rifle unless I give the government that power. As a society, we give our governments power so that we can peacefully coexist in a society. We give up some of our freedoms, right? Some of our personal sovereignty. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to coexist. So that we didn't have that. We didn't have a constitution. So what Elmer's talking about is the country doesn't actually exist. We didn't, this wasn't done right. And Ottawa is acting as if they are the
Yes.
national government of this geographical location. So
You're right.
let's fix this by doing it properly, federating, and then we'll actually, we can have our own constitution and we'll be legit. But what was happening at this time, in January 1981, Pierre Elliott Trudeau was working on bringing the Constitution from Great Britain to Canada so that it was our Constitution. But when he did that, he did things like forgot to add property rights, added the Section 1 saying that we have the rights if the government says we do, you know? So if Elmer had been successful back then, this would be a totally different situation now. But Pierre Trudeau accomplished his goal, and here we are.
And it sounds like that's probably the way it's happening anyways, like especially with proroguing government right now. It doesn't matter what we try and do because there's no MPs to be able to vote on anything. We can't make laws. So no matter what we're talking about right now, until we actually have a group in Parliament, we won't be able to actually do anything.
Yeah, we can't self-govern, but we can be governed.
Yes, we can talk until we're blue in our faces, but we're not going to be able to do anything until such time as that happens. And we still don't even know when that's really going to happen.
Yeah, hopefully soon. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
Shall we continue?
We can continue, and I'm going to disappear in about 5 minutes just because I have another job. Not that I get paid for this, but I have another job, and but I will definitely be watching because it's like going back in time and watching this. So it's very cool. Thanks for bringing this
Pretty neat.
to our attention.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, continue.
Well, thanks to Lois for sending me the link.
Oh yes. Bongos. Should have done the bongos.
Elmer Knudson, I tend to shout at people, as you know.
Yeah, well, I might shout back, you know.
Well, no, feel free to shout back. Equal time is yours for the taking. But, you know, I'm one of the new Canadians. I came here 35 years ago.
I know. And you haven't even learned how to speak Western Canadian English yet.
I get by.
See.
Anyway, I mean, to me, the prospect or the thought of becoming even your type of quasi-separatist is unthinkable. So I want you to convert me. Tell me why I, Jack Webster, who may have a little influence in public opinion, should join WestFed. I mean, I want specifics.
Well, I tell you, Jack, it's just exactly this way. And it's a little different out in BC because you had your natural resources ever since 1871. In the prairies, we didn't have it. In prairies, in Alberta, Manitoba, and even though Manitoba joined a long time before Alberta and Saskatchewan, we didn't get our natural resource rights until 1930. And until then, we were very, very poor. We had no revenue because Ottawa was taking all our revenue for our land and natural resources, and Saskatchewan went into the Depression years with about a $94 billion debt. So there's been dissatisfaction for many years in the prairies.
Not in the young generation. I mean, we've had an affluent post-war all through the West, roughly speaking, have we not? Yeah. Certainly in the past 20 years.
Yes, but...
and when Leduc was brought in, was it not the federal government who subsidized it and helped it all the way before Alberta's fields were developed?
No.
No?
They wouldn't give us any money at all. We had to go to New York and Texas and all the other places in order to get money to drill the oil and find it. You know, God hid that stuff pretty good. Barrett said that, you know, that we got the oil there because God put it there. And that's right. But he hid it a damn good, too. And it took a lot of Alberta know-how in order to find it down there. And it's going to take even more to find what's left because it's getting scarcer. But the thing is that's causing the alienation of the West. We've gone along with the flag issue. We've gone along with bilingualism. We've gone along with them doing a lot of things. But when they start to get to the position where they say that they are going to draft a constitution and they are going to retake the control of our natural resources again, and they're going to tell us what we're going to price, and they're going to be here in BC and they're going to tell you about your forest products pretty soon. They're already trying to take your gas revenue and take that control of it. And we're heading towards a unitary state, Jack, I tell you, in a country 4,000 miles wide, and with a little bunch of people over there in Ottawa who never were a colony telling us what we got to do across this country. I reject it.
Would you agree with me that the reason people are against the government is largely because it's a hate Trudeau thing and not necessarily a hate Ottawa thing?
Well, he's accentuated, and you got to address the question to Trudeau, because after all, he's been the prime minister for 12 bloody years in this country, and he has changed the Liberal Party from a traditional Western party to now a Quebec-based party, and with some of his Ontario friends over there, and everybody, all of us, with the Conservative and ND party and Social Credit and everything, go into every election with a 60 or 75 to 80 seat handicap. There is no bloody way that we're ever going to have any say in the decision-making process of this country.
Because of Quebec.
Nothing's changed.
Because
Nothing has
of the power base that Trudeau has established in this country.
Would you
Actually,
like-
that's not
Would you
true.
like to see
Quebec has
out
more
of
rights now than they
Confederation
did
so
in
that there'd be an evener balance in the English-speaking
Because they had a
parts of Canada?
referendum.
That's
Well, I
right.
think that for the rest of the country, if Quebec had have separated on the 20th, the whole rest of Canada would have been better, because Trudeau wouldn't have had that base.
But what's the difference between you, therefore, and the aims and aspirations of Quebec?
Quebec has a right to do just exactly what we have. Ontario has the right to do exactly what we're doing. Nova Scotia has the right. But Nova Scotia and the maritime provinces, Atlantic provinces, have been raped so many years ago. They were wealthy provinces at one time. In central Canada, Ontario and Quebec raped them many, many years ago. So they're so poor they can't do anything about it.
To many people, it looks, I mean, the separatist movement, or the quasi-separatist movement,
They're not even quasi. We're trying to establish a voice in the Canadian scene.
you want to change you want to scrap all the present arrangements.
Well, yeah, because we have no constitution, and we want a constitution designed by the people in the West.
You want a separate constitution for the 4 Western provinces.
We want them to begin the federating process, write that constitution, and then if at some later date, after the Constituent Assembly has done this, and some of the rest of the provinces say, hey, we like that first Canadian ever constitution, let's talk about it, then the Constituent Assembly could go ahead and do it.
When you talk about the 4 Western provinces and the Western Federation, would you expect the other provinces to have the same type of freedoms from Ottawa? Ontario.
Well, they can do whatever they like, but Ontario is Ottawa just about, as far as I'm concerned.
Under your West Federation, who would look after defense?
That would be up to the federal government, which we establish.
Which,
But they would have limited authority, as far as I'm personally
the
concerned.
new federal government.
Yes.
Where would the capital be?
I don't know. That would have to be decided by the Constituent Assembly and by the people elected to decide. that
Mere
issue.
Alberta.
We're talking about the new capital of the West
Yeah.
Federation.
Yes.
Where would that be?
I don't know. That would have to be decided, like I say, by the Constituent Assembly. See, I don't know if you understand our whole program.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Because when you talk about the West Federation and a new constitution and a new capital, I mean, I'm not stupid. That's separation.
Well, separation from what?
Separation from Canada as a nation.
When did Canada become a nation?
1931, Statute of Westminster.
Who made it that way? Can a British government create a federation in Canada?
It did.
No, it didn't.
It's worked for since when?
Did it lock up on you? Did you stop it? Chris? I'm not sure if that has died on Chris's end or what the scoop is. We'll give him another 10 seconds or so. I actually have to leave. So I can't just leave and leave the studio, because otherwise it'll cut off the stream. And I think Chris had the same issues with Dr. Michael Wagner the other day. So, but it is interesting to look back on this. Yeah, sure enough, it is 43, 44 years ago. And they've basically got the same sort of problems that they've got that we are talking about certainly now. I'm just going to say, text Chris and say, you're frozen. And see if he replies back from that. Chris is frozen. Yes, I think Chris freeze. Yeah. Oh, and then he just died. He's gone. Okay. There you go. That's what happens on a Friday night with live TV, for lack of live podcast. So Chris said, no, I'll be right back. He says, okay, so then we'll see what ends up happening. So he's just going to let me hang out here to dry. A little FYI, just to kind of change gears, tomorrow is January 25th. And even though I believe we left on the convoy on the 23rd, they are actually, is it celebrating? Is that a proper term for doing that? The 25th, Chris says, my boy decided it would be a good idea to cast his Xbox to my PC. So I blocked it off. That's funny. So anyways, there's lots of things going on tomorrow being the 25th. We've got in Coots, they're actually doing a convoy from Lethbridge down through Milk River down to Coots and back. And then on the way back, they're going to go by the Lethbridge Penitentiary and honk their horns aplenty for Marco Van Hoekenbos, who's in jail there. And then I know there's also, what else is happening up in, there comes Chris, up in Edmonton. They've got a convoy that's going to go around the Henday. And you can probably find out more about that. Just do a quick little search on that. And I know the People's Party of Canada are actually doing a little bit of a mini tour. They're in Morningside tomorrow morning. Coincidentally, if it was afternoon side, they'd probably be there in the afternoon. But no, it's Morningside, and they're in the morning, and then they're up in Edmonton as of tomorrow evening. So if you're interested in any of that, you can probably find that. Unfortunately, I don't have any of that information at my fingertips. And with that, I'm going to bring Chris back on here if he's capable of doing that. Chris, are you capable? Give me a thumbs up on the back. He can't hear me. I'm just going to bring him forward.
Okay, I'm back.
Yes.
My boy decided it would be a great idea to connect his Xbox to my PC. So my screen turned into the Xbox, and he's moving his controller around, and
That's
I'm trying to turn it
amazing.
off. And I turned the power button, the Xbox, will shut my PC down.
That is hilarious. So I guess I have to edit this part out if we want to broadcast this. Actually, it's so funny.
It's good. It's good. Why not?
All right, I'm going to leave there, Chris, but continue on, and I'll be watching as I'm driving. So you guys have a great night, and don't
Listening.
Don't leave.
Listening as you're driving.
What's that?
Listening as you're driving.
What would I say? Watching as I'm driving?
Oh, you sure did.
maybe I do that anyways. No, I listen. All right, good night.
All right, well, have fun at karaoke.
Yeah, I will. That I will. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Maybe I'll even see some of you tomorrow. We'll see what's going on. Okay, bye.
Okay, see you, Carrie. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. Here we go. Well, back to Webster. I think I got it queued up in the right spot.
No, I don't.
Okay.
Because when you talk about the West Federation and the new constitution and the new capital, I mean,
That's a
I'm
little
not
behind.
stupid. That's separation.
Well, separation from what?
Separation from Canada as a nation.
When did Canada become a nation?
Bingo.
1931, Statute of Westminster.
Who made it that way? Can a British government create a federation in Canada?
It did.
No, it didn't.
It's worked for since when? 1867?
Well, 1867, we had a governor general who was the corporation sole until 1931.
But you can't turn around and tell me that we don't have a constitution. We've got the BNA Act, which has been the effective constitution.
It was a British statute, yes. It was for a division of powers of the local and central government under a governor general. The Constitution was the letters patent issued to the governor general.
Technicalities. Do you know that
I know.
in Patella's time in British Columbia, that BC threatened to secede unless Ottawa stepped in with social welfare payments?
Well, I suppose they had taxed the
In
hell
those
out of you
days,
in the first place.
when it was poor,
Yeah.
they said to Ottawa, unless you give us more money, we'll secede. Now you're saying, and from oil-rich Alberta, if you take any of our money, we'll separate.
Oh yeah, you can't say that, boy. We're selling our oil and energy at 40% or 40% of the going price. We're not asking for even a 75% today. We're saying that we want to work towards 75% by 1984. We're saying to them, at least pay us a reasonable price. But no, Trudeau's more interested in that north-south connection now, and he'll go down to Mexico and pay them the full price. And then, of course, they're going to get a lot of our dollars. So now he has a trade mission down there, and they're trying to find out how can we get those dollars back. So they're more interested in trade north-south than the east-west connection.
Do you think he made a pit stop in Cuba with Mrs. Trudeau? Oh, we'll never know.
Kind of liked the east-west connection. We were a little unhappy with it, but when his train,
Little unhappy with it.
Yeah, well, when his train changed off and decided to go via Paris and Moscow and the third world nations and north and south and everything, when we got that western section, we kind of dropped it off at the Manitoba border and we said, hey, just a minute now. If that's the way you're going to go rather than the real east-west situation, we're going to unhook that train. So we unhooked it, and the East just kept right on going. They never even bothered to wave goodbye.
Would you like to see Ontario really suffer because of a shortage, or the nation suffer because of a shortage, when if Lougheed carries out his promise to cut oil production?
No, I think I'd like to see him make a deal with them that we will sell our oil at 20 or 30 or 40% below world prices, providing they will sell us all of their manufactured goods at the same percentage discount.
Fair's fair.
Prices.
You're not very keen on the way Ontario has acted, are you?
No, because the power is in the center, and the power is Ontario and Quebec. And I don't want the West to get raped like maritime provinces.
Would
did.
your West Federation, if you ever get to this magic day, would it have a central parliament for itself?
It have federal, because we were going to federate. You see, we have regional
The federation of the 4 provinces.
Yes.
Nothing to do with Ottawa.
Well, no, not in the initial stages, at least.
Ottawa would be a separate country.
Well, they left us, yeah.
What do you mean they left us? They
Well,
may have annoyed you. They may be stealing your money and Canadianizing your industry.
And writing a constitution, there's only 2 ways that a constitution can be formed, and that is either by the people or a dictator. And that little dictator sitting in Ottawa right now,
Called him
he
a
says that
dictator.
I have the authority to to establish a constitution in here, that old dusty BNA Act, and he's going to establish it here. He's going to change it, and he's going to impose it. Now, do you
And he
want
did.
some dictator to impose a constitution on you and tell you can't smoke anymore on CBC or whatever the heck it is?
Doesn't he have a majority in a thing called the House of Commons?
That's part of the power structure. That's why until the structure has changed, we will be a colony of Ottawa longer than Canada was a colony of Great Britain.
Has democracy failed in Canada because of Trudeau's and the Liberals' power base in Quebec?
Democracy has failed because of the structure, and whether Clark was there or Broadbent or whoever, it would still be the same. So we have to change the structure in this country, or we will be that colony. And Trudeau, of course, knows all of this, and he is moving fast to that unitary state.
Do I hear a rumor that you're going to amalgamate with Christie's Western Canada concept?
Never.
Why not?
Because he wants to be a political party. And
What are you?
we are dealing with a political issue, but nation building and constitution writing comes before political parties.
Give yourself a political label. What are you?
Personally,
Mm.
I'm a conservative. I was a liberal at one time, but the whole political spectrum moved to the left, and I stayed where I was.
You're not, West Fed is not a political party.
Never.
Collection of industrialists and right-wingers.
No, center of the political spectrum, I would say. Conservatives are even to the right or to the left of the center, what we used to know as the center.
Yeah. You still haven't convinced me why the man in the street should join you. I mean, specific.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, as far as
Tell you
I'm
what,
personally
Try and
concerned,
convince the callers.
okay,
Elmer Knudson. How old are you, Elmer?
I'm too old.
Oh, come on.
Well, I'm starting in the 60s.
Yeah, so am I. So don't feel too old.
No, I'm not too. I don't feel too old. You know, that's just mind over matter or something like that. And if you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
Elmer Knudson, the founder of the Western Federal Association, which claims how many members?
Well, we know we have over 20,000.
20. I thought it was 50.
No. I never said 50.
How much of your own money have you put into it?
About 20,000.
About $20,000. How much have you got in your tin box now for the Federation?
Right at the moment, we got about $35,000, but we have about $1 million promised right at the moment.
Oh, from oil companies, of course.
No, sirree.
They're the ones who'll benefit.
No, they have. You know something? We haven't got $1 from an oil company. We have gotten $1,000 from a man who happens to be connected with the oil industry, but hasn't he got rights too? No, the basic it comes from.
Will you accept large sums of money from oil companies who are paranoid about Trudeau's Canadianization?
Well, I think that we will accept it from people in the oil industry, but not from companies.
No limit on the amount of donation.
No.
You want 4 million.
We're going to get 4 million
By when?
by maybe August.
And use it for?
The try to convince the people of Western Canada that we have to become a joint force out here to force Ottawa.
And
To
sever
act-
the connection to Ottawa.
No, to force Ottawa to listen to the West and stop their colonization of Western Canada.
Elmer Knudson, West Fed. After the break. Your calls. I'm not going to run one of the old-fashioned polls on whether or not you're a separatist or a quasi-separatist or a West Fed supporter or a Christie supporter. I want you to make short, sharp comments without the usual endearments to either of us, or ask questions of Elmer Knudson. It is Knudson, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is. I'm the son of Knut.
Son of Knut.
You know how the Norwegian names are? They take the father's first name and add son to it. So it's Hans' son, or William's son, or John's son, or Knut's son.
Fancy that.
Yeah.
Who am I?
Well, of course, you came from Ireland, didn't you?
I'm the son of Webster. Okay, straight up to Elmer. Go
Yes.
ahead, please.
Mr. Knudson,
Yes,
I've got 2 questions.
right?
I'll ask them. They're short and succinct. And I'll hang the phone up and listen to your answers. Number 1, does West Fed have a constitution drawn up? And if not, how are we supposed to vote or go along with them unless we know what they're going to do? Number 2, how are you going to rage for the Aboriginal rights and let them get their share of their natural resources?
Thank you. 2 questions. Do you have a constitution?
Yes, we have a constitution, and our constitution is very simple, that we want to put pressure on the provincial governments to agree to forming a Western Federation. Number 2, to get have elections and get people elected to a constituent assembly to draft a constitution. And to answer the second one, we hope the natives and all the other groups are along in and get members in that constituent assembly, and that's where the constitution of the country will be decided.
In other words, you will recognize Aboriginal rights to oil in Alberta.
We are not, we think that the Western people, when they get together in a constituent assembly, will do just that, yes.
You don't think you'll get fighting between Alberta and BC,
No.
Manitoba and Saskatchewan?
Well, that's why we say that we have 4 regions, and we want our regional governments, and we recognize them. And that's the difference between Christie and us. We just don't want to be a political party. We want no association with a political party of any kind, including his.
Nothing to do with Christie?
None.
Never?
Never.
Ever?
Ever.
For sure?
For sure.
Did he get his big crowd because of your image?
Yes, because he announced all over the Alberta that there was an amalgamation between us, and he hadn't even spoken to us, and we had utterly rejected that a long time ago.
Go ahead, please, to Elmer Knudson.
Yeah, Knudson,
Yes.
I have a couple questions for you. Some of them already been asked by Mr. Webster.
Just ask the questions.
Is it not a fact that you along with some others, creating a lot of confusion and misleading the people in the country?
Okay, fair enough. Are you
Well,
confusing people?
Well, I think we're making people think. I certainly hope we can confuse them long enough so that they will start to realize the situation and probably tell us where we're wrong if we are wrong, but we want to have a Western voice.
Go ahead from Victoria.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I would just like to say that I think Vancouver Island should separate from the country, and I say this a bit tongue-in-cheek, but we could, grab the naval base up at Comox, and then Esquimalt, we could, take the ships over.
Yeah, where does it end?
Why shouldn't we separate? And, and we could run everything ourselves.
Who the heck said I was going to talk about separation? We're talking about federation.
Well, I'm talking, are we one country or aren't we? And
Well, I'm saying that we have never federated in this country, and I challenge anybody to show me a federation document.
well, what I'm saying, in effect, is
We fought 2 wars as a nation.
Yeah, and we
We
were
fought the Second World War as a nation. We were in the Korean War as a nation.
that's
Surely
you,
that makes us a nation.
but are we a country or are we not a country? And that's what I'm saying.
Well, what I'm saying is legally, have we ever
I didn't-
federated?
In
and-
Alberta,
What are you saying is what?
legally have we ever federated, and when did we become that country? I know that in 1967 we were marching across this country and saying this land is your land and this land is my land. But a lot of things happened after 1967, and one of them was Trudeau got on the scene, and he knew that we hadn't federated, and he is trying to take control of this country from Ottawa, and we utterly reject that. And if he's going to keep on going that way, well, then we're going to do our own thing out here. We're not going his direction.
It's Trudeau that's the problem.
Well, because he controls the Liberal Party with the support of Ontario and Quebec.
Okay, well, look, the reason why that is that's where the people are. Let's face it, it's a democracy.
Yeah, but that's what's a democracy can work without having the power all in one place. I mean, in the United States, for instance, they have the Senate that has 2 seats in Rhode Island and 2 seats in Illinois. But so that sometimes the power of the majority can be very vicious, and that's exactly what's happened in this country for 113 years.
If you talk like this in the United States, you might be faced with federal marshals.
Well,
no. You've got freedom of speech in this country and in the United States. I know, and I hope that we can keep it here in this country. But the way it's going, one of these days we won't have it.
No state can separate in the United States, I'll tell you.
But they have federated.
Anyway,
They have federated.
Alberta,
Okay, good enough. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. This gentleman has made me so angry and so disgusted. Thank God he's in the minority. He has disassociated himself from Britain and from Ottawa. How does he feel about joining the United States? Because most of us would not join the United States.
Well, we think the United States are real nice people. We want to have dealings with them and everything, but we don't want to live in their house. We want to build our own.
Fair enough. She told you off, didn't she? You disgusted her.
Yes.
From Armstrong, BC.
Yes.
Speak up.
You're with me, Jack.
Yes, I'm with you. Go ahead.
You're killing me with the capital gains tax.
I don't know how he got in. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm an ex-Albertan. I lived there for 20 years, and I can certainly agree with you, Mr. Knudson.
Thank you.
And I don't know how Mr. Webster sits there as a host and doesn't even know enough about the history of Canada to know that the federal government never partook of the Leduc explorations. He has heard that so many times, and still he's very dull, and he can't learn. I was there when Mr. Manning tried. I know all about it.
Mooney.
But Mr. Webster is a socialist.
Did you say Mooney?
Pardon?
Did you say Bill Mooney?
No, I didn't say Bill Mooney.
I'm a socialist.
I said Mr. Webster. And I think that Mr. Webster is a socialist, and he wouldn't agree with you even if you were 200% right.
Well, are you talking to me? I don't think he's that bad. He's kind of a rough customer, but I can be rough too. So we're getting along pretty good here. And one of these days, one of these days, I'm going to convince him that he should speak for us.
Ma'am, you're just delightful. I don't think I'm a socialist. What I am is I'm agin them all. I'm agin everybody. And I sit here and I try and provoke people. Some people I can provoke easier than others.
Please learn the facts so that when we speak about Canada history, you will know what we're talking about.
Sorry, ma'am. Can't help it. I went to a school in the old country, and the only thing I did was learn to read and write.
Well, then believe some
Thank
of the
you, my
things
dear.
that
No, enough. I'm not going to be insulted anymore this morning. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to have your address. You have a new member.
Well, we have an address here in BC. I just don't know the address right offhand. But I tell you, if you come to the meeting tonight at 8 o'clock at the Hyatt Regency, we'll tell you the whole rest of the story as well.
How much are you charging for the meeting?
Nothing, but we're going to take up a collection because we want to raise part of that $4 million tonight.
This is where you've got the big oil man.
Well, we're going to have a man that happens to be in the oil business, but he is a Canadian just as well as I am and you and everybody else. And he has a right to use some of his money to support his own cause, I would think.
Carl Nickel.
Carl Nickel. And
how big is your hall tonight?
Well, it's about 2,000 people, but I think we're going to have to probably turn away a few.
Have you papered the house? I mean, Clancy, your PR man's an old expert at papering houses.
Oh,
Are
is
you
he?
bringing in buses?
Well, I don't know. He's done a pretty good job, for us, but we have trouble teaching him some of the things because, he was a former social creditor.
Yeah.
Yeah, trouble with that.
Go ahead, please.
Yes. Mr. Webster, good morning.
Morning.
I just asked Mr. Knudson there, in the event that he was successful, and by the way, I'm for him and what he says there. I agree with him. You'd have a new member here too, but in the event that he came through with it, how would that affect the old age pensions and the Canada pension as we now have them?
This is known as the Quebec syndrome.
I just love that question because a whole bunch of people in this country, you know, we have bank accounts and savings accounts and all that kind of jazz. You know, we think that that's our money. And a lot of the old people think that there's a great big stack of money sitting in Ottawa someplace. And when they get to be 65 years of age, they're going to start to draw from that fund. Well, I have a surprise for you. There is no money in any fund in Ottawa. They have a promise to pay you some money when you get to a certain age or if you have a handicap or whatever, but it comes out of direct taxation that day that it's paid to you. It doesn't come from an already saved account.
What would be different with your West Fed central financing?
Well, of course, I am from Alberta, and I know that situation a little bit better, but Alberta has contributed over $30 billion in the last 4 or 5 years to the equalization payments or whatever. And I tell you, if we had that 30, we'd be able to double, triple, and everything else, the old age pensioners. So I'm sure that we'll be able to take care of them without any problem in the West here.
Now, what's your address?
Well, I tell you,
no, I want to give you an address. It's quite obvious that I'm not in total sympathy with you.
Well, I'm going to work on you, though. And I'll get the address.
So you got to give me concrete reasons why I should be a separatist. You would tell me.
Yeah, but you see,
all you would tell me is
that
my taxes would go down, my earnings would go up. There's nothing except money involved in your philosophy.
Oh, no. Wait now. The main thing, the last 3 straws to break the camel's back was the energy package, the Constitution, and this last budget with $105 billion worth of debt and a government overspending like nobody's business, already spending 47 cents of every dollar of GNP. And we're going farther and farther into debt. We're going to be bankrupt. And so our cost to the ordinary Joe, the cost of living will drop 45% and the dollar will go up about 50%.
That'll be bad for the lumber business.
No, it won't, because at least the dollar that they do get will buy a lot more stuff than that 75-cent dollar.
More calls to Elmer Knudson after the break.
It's just uncanny how similar it is.
I'm surprised you didn't cry the blues about all the oil rigs fleeing Alberta.
Well, of course, that's one of the problems. You know, there's about 43 oil rigs that have gone in the last little while, and of course, about 40,000 jobs that have been lost. And we are
that was from the
NEP. An
NEP.
energy crisis in the world, and Canada was trying to go for self-sufficiency by 1990. And with the policies that we're going now, we're going to be all walking behind horses like I did when I was a young fella.
Because of Trudeau's left-wing socialism nationalization.
Well, yeah, he calls it Canadianization, but I call it socialization or nationalization, and it's an excuse to make this a unitary state.
Go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
Look, I'm a Canadian. I was born in Alberta, spent much of my life in BC and a few years in back east. And I'd like to say just 2 things about this whole silly business. One, why should we charge ourselves for our own resources at a back-breaking price? I see no point in that. Point number 2, we've been a nation. We've acted as a nation. We've accepted ourselves as a nation. We have a national anthem. We've got people who are veterans who have lost their lives for this country. We've made laws and we've paid taxes. If we act as a nation by custom, we are a nation if nothing else. So no silly comments saying that we are not a country can make it anything else. So it's a point. It's really a business of saying, Mr. Knudson saying, everybody's crazy but me.
Well, no, I think you got to recognize that a country has to have a constitution. And a constitution, everybody is saying that the BNA Act is that constitution, except the people. And
it doesn't have a constitution, so that Great Britain is not a country.
Well, Soviet Union has a constitution.
Yeah, I know, but
Britain doesn't have a constitution.
It has a constitution. I think the Magna Carta was a pretty good basis of a constitution.
No, that was a right-wing document written by a bunch of farmers and barons.
It's the basis of democracy for the West.
We've had the right to make
okay, ma'am, you've made a good point. She really has. And you can't answer that point. We are now a nation. We may be in trouble, but we're still a nation.
Okay, all right. I'll say it then, Jack. All right, we were a nation, and we are, if you want to say it now. But we're gradually being broken up by Trudeau, and we're going to become a unitary state with a one-party government. And we have been that for 38 or for the last 44 years. And we are losing our rights every day, and I refuse to let him change this country.
If you had a good right-wing Tory government in Ottawa, top-heavy with MPs from the West, and 75% of the Chicago price, you wouldn't be forming a West Fed.
Yes, it's deeper than that. It's constitution and freedoms and rights as well that are being taken away from us by the East.
Go ahead from Vernon. 5525. Go ahead from Vernon.
Vernon.
What are you?
Hello.
Yes, that's you. Speak up.
Hello.
Oh, sorry, you got the wrong one. It's Revelstoken too. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Knudson.
Yes.
I'd like to know, let you know that I agree with you 100%, and hope you have an office set up here in the interior somewhere.
Yeah,
and
1981.
I'm also a federal servant. I'd like to join your party, but hopefully under your federation you will liberate the federal service and let us run politically again. Thank you.
Yeah, well, the office...
Never mind, I've promised to put up for a sharp glimpse your address in Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
You'll just confuse people if you give it now.
Okay.
Much obliged. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Can I have your address?
I'll put it up on the screen, unfortunately, but I will do. Hold on. Hey, just go away and watch the screen. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes.
Good morning. I'm behind you 99%. I have one question and one piece of advice. You're doing a lot of harm by talking this federating talk. Leave that to lawyer. Just if you can't call us a separatist movement, call us an independent movement. Okay. My question is, will you give the people a referendum on immigration and the monarchy? Thank you.
What was the questions?
He said, first of all, call yourself independent.
Yeah, well, that's what we're working for. It's everybody else that says we're separatists. We want an independent federation out here.
Will you give the people a referendum on the monarchy?
Yeah, well, yes, we would be. And our referendum and our polls say that the people want to have some association with Great Britain and retain the monarchical system. And I agree 100% with that.
You're a monarchist?
Yes.
God save the Queen?
Yes.
But not God save Ottawa?
No, we have said that that maybe the second in line for the throne should be the prince of our nation out here.
Who's the prince of our nation?
Well, we should suggest that the second in line for the throne, they have the Prince of Wales, the first in line for the throne. Maybe the second in line should be the Prince of Western Canada.
You serious?
Well, I don't see what's wrong with it. I mean, that some of our members have suggested.
Prince Andrew?
Yeah.
He be the titular head of the new state of Westfed.
Of Western Federation.
Of the new state of Westfed.
Yes.
So you are a separatist?
No, I'm not.
You can fool me. Go ahead,
I'm having trouble with you. I don't know what in the world I'm going to do, but...
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, two questions. When this West Fed comes to be independent and BC and Saskatchewan, Manitoba re-elect the NDP, would you want to be ruled by socialists?
That's a good question, but I don't think that we're going to change the nature of our people. They're still going to. We're drifting towards an absolute socialist state now. Maybe if we get a constitution that we want, and I don't see really that much difference between Blakely. I don't think he's a very. I would be afraid of this Barrett, but I think that most of the people in the West would want basically the same type of a constitution, and the drift to socialism will happen, and it's happening right now by Trudeau. Trudeau is taking us that direction fast.
I must congratulate the caller on an excellent question.
Yes, it was a good
When
question.
the houses of Westfed vote NDP, will you still want Westfed? Thank you, ma'am.
One more.
Yeah. Hope it's as good.
If only Alberta becomes independent, how would you handle using the air, road, and sea lanes for foreign power?
Well, I don't think that Alberta would be by itself. I'm pretty sure that Alberta and BC are, because we've got an awful lot of members in both provinces, and I think Saskatchewan and Manitoba.
And if it did, it would be the socialist government.
Thank you, ma'am. Oh, you got to stick around, Elmer. That was a good question.
Yeah, I know. I like
And
some of
next
those
time you see Lawhead, tell him we're still mad at him stealing PWA, moving out here to there. After the break.
Almost done. Has anybody tried to phone that number yet? I'm
Well,
just
seems a
curious.
nice enough fellow. You know, just I can't pin him down on precisely what WestFed is. I'm willing to believe you, you know, if I know precisely what you want.
Well, I tell you, it takes some thinking, and it's hard to understand really. But really, what is forcing WestFed to take place is that we are changing Canada, or Trudeau is, and he's taking away our freedoms that we established in this country. He is changing the government from a government of parliament by a government of three wise men from Quebec and a coal miner from Cape Breton, and we're getting to a dictatorial state. And I will not accept that, and I'm going to try to prevent it happening in Canada, in Western Canada, if I can.
Okay, fair enough. No, but it's the Constitution that really upsets you.
Constitution?
It's not the money.
No.
It's not the energy budget.
No.
It's not the tax on natural gas.
No.
It's not the fleeing of the oil rigs.
It's the Constitution and the future of our children that is being threatened by a dictator in Ottawa, a power in the center.
Go ahead, please.
Mr. Webster, I'd just like to ask Mr. Knudson just how far he's prepared to take this Western separatism of his. We have a perfect example of what happened in the United States when the South tried to secede from the North. Would he go to war for this?
Well, first of all, in the States is entirely different. They had formed a federation and agreement, a compact, and they had all gotten together, which is not true in Canada. And I don't think that if Quebec had the right to take their own destiny, and everybody said that Quebec had the right to do it if the question was phrased properly, and if they wanted to separate it, they voted to become a separate unitary state, that they had the right to do it. That right.
Only the NDP specifically said that.
No, Trudeau said it too.
What were you saying, ma'am?
Hello?
Yes?
I just want to say this, that I find that the West is far more separatist than Quebec ever knew how to be. And Mr. Knudson, you're just adding to the problem. This is Canada, one country, for God's sake, Canada.
Without a constitution.
Thank you, ma'am.
Without a constitution, Mr. Knudson, it's still one country.
Oh, we're not trying to, we're trying to say to you that we don't intend to separate. We want to start the federating process.
Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Knudson.
Yes?
Did you fight for Canada in the last war?
I was in the Navy.
Great. You sound like a great Canadian to me anyway, who's very eager to keep Canada free from the Trudeau crowd.
That's right.
To you, and good morning.
Thank you very much, ma'am. See, you've got some friends out there.
I've got lots of friends out
From
there.
Vernon, BC. Go ahead, please.
Hello?
That's
Yes.
you.
Hello?
Speak up.
Yes. Tell me, who did you serve with in the last war?
I was in the Navy.
Who?
In the Navy.
In the Navy?
Yes.
For who?
For
the RCNVR.
He was in the Royal Canadian Naval Volunteer Reserve.
This is Canada, for God's sake. You guys should be all put in front of a firing squad. You and Christie and the whole damn bunch of you. Because that's where you belong. You're nothing but traitors to the country. If you use
It's a good thing we got freedom of speech, because you're entitled to your opinion too.
Instead of trying to break it up, we'd all be a hell of a lot better.
I'm trying to federate it.
Thank you very
There's
much.
an emotional
Go ahead,
reaction,
please.
like we're used to.
That's you.
I was wondering, you haven't let Mr. Knudson.
Carry on.
You haven't let Mr. Knudson speak about the North yet. I was kind of curious what his place was for Yukon and the NWT in the new federation.
Well, we're going to invite them to come in. And we certainly want them. But first of all, their situation is a little different. They were not covered by the Statute of Westminster. And therefore, they're still territories. And I say they're still territories of Great Britain, because the Dominion government was really the Governor General, and he ceased to have his authority after 31.
Okay, thank you very much. That doesn't make much sense. Trying to tell me the Northwest Territories are colonies. Maybe colonies of Ottawa, but they're not colonies of Britain.
Well, when was Ottawa a colony?
We were a colony before 1867.
Ottawa.
No, Canada.
Well, Ontario was, and that's a colony. Ottawa isn't Ontario, and isn't Quebec. Ottawa is a city that they pay rent to the colony of Ottawa, Upper Canada.
Go ahead, please. What are you?
Yes, Mr. Webster?
Yes, sir.
Yes, there's been an awful lot of talk about socialism, but there hasn't been too much thought.
Mm-hmm.
If you could consider Nikita Khrushchev, who would be considered an expert on communism,
Mm-hmm.
his statement was a socialist is nothing but a communist without guts. A diplomat now would have put it a little differently. He would have possibly said the good intentions of a socialist are the paving stones on the road to communism. And when I look at what the free enterprise system has done for North America and the citizens of North America in a shorter time than all recorded history is done under socialism and other forms of government, then I'll stay the free enterprise way. And when I hear people talk about socialism, it's like going into a crap game with $10.
Right.
Against a man's 25,000.
I gather your view is that you.
And you want to play against Trudeau's $10 and his socialism? It certainly doesn't ring very well.
Are you in favor of Westfed?
I certainly am. I'm
Thank
all for
you,
it.
sir. Back after the break.
He's so Irish.
Elmer Knudson.
Yes.
West Federation Association, now called Westfed. Looking for money from oil companies or anyone else to build up a $4 million war chest to fight Ottawa.
Yes, we're going to do it, and already we have 1,000 farmers who are prepared to give us $1,000, and that
Each?
means $1,000 each. That's $1 million to start off with.
You got the names on the list?
Yes.
Who organized this drive?
Well, we have had that offered to us many, many times. We said, well, we'll call for the money when we need it. At the moment, we're starting a big advertising program about a month from now that will tell the Westfed story in great big block letters.
Hey, is Stanley Roberts one of your supporters now?
Stanley Roberts, he told me at one time he was a half a step away from me, and then he went and joined the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. I think he wants to be the next prime minister or something.
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering, what, Mr. Knudson, what do you think, firstly, of Hugh Harry? And is this what you're saying, that you want to create a Western government independent of Ottawa? But what happens if, like what we're creating in Canada, where Ontario and Quebec have the power, since they are major provinces? But what does happen if we create such a problem with Alberta, since they are quite a powerful province?
Well, that's the thing is that the Constituent Assembly would decide what powers it be, but our suggestion would be that if the federal government in the West here is formed, that it should probably be 10 or 12 members from each province, to heck with the population figure, because there are regional differences, and I think that they should all have equal input.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Knudson.
Yes.
Starting with the Ottawa's ignoring Canada's internal east-west relations. Well, we have a similar situation here in BC, where the South, the Lower Mainland, has the population density, but they don't have the resources that the North have. So what's to say that someplace like Fort Nelson, who has things really just to cry about, don't succeed from Canada or from British Columbia? I mean, where's this catch-22 farce merry-go-round stop?
Well, first of all, to answer that question, they would have absolutely no legal right to do it, because the colony of British Columbia is a identifiable and a legal entity, and they have the right to work in their own territory. And Alberta has, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario, and all of them have.
In other words, Fort Nelson can't separate from BC.
No, because it's a legal entity. It's just like
But the Western provinces can federate against and outside Ottawa.
They have their own sovereignty areas.
Go ahead, please.
Yes?
That's you, ma'am.
Very good. I think that the lowest form of human life is a traitor. Mr. Knudson obviously is a traitor.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. No comment from you. Go ahead, please.
Is that me?
That's you.
Oh, yeah. Well, if Mr. Knudson considered the fact that there are people who have been born in BC, who will live in BC forever under the Canadian flag, and there is the chance of civil war.
Well, I don't think that there is any possibility of civil war because, first of all, we have no compact, no agreement, no nothing. And if Quebec had the right to do its own thing, Ontario has the right to do its own thing. I think we have too.
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
That's you, ma'am.
I would like to know if the Federation is going to start manufacturing their own goods here, or are they going to ship back east to do the manufacturing back east when the Federation is need?
Well, I tell you, we'd never, I don't think, start our own manufacturing because we can buy on the open market a lot cheaper than we can buy from East right now.
Listen, how much time we got? Your public relations man gave you a document to give to me this morning. Are you going to give it to me?
I think I should, Jack, because I think you're just a half a step away from being a charter member of WestFed, so I'll give it to you.
Well, policy statement. I'm not a socialist, I'm not a liberal, I'm not a conservative, I'm not a social creditor, and I can't possibly impugn my integrity by being a member of WestFed.
You can't, eh?
I must be independent.
Well,
it's not an insult, it's a gesture. Now I'll give you your pound of flesh. Put up his address.
Well, you see, you're fair about
WestFed
this.
Association, Box 9680, 349 West Georgia Street, Vancouver, BC, V6B4G3. Now, back in the close-up again. I'll tear up the card once more, in case you didn't get it right the first time. WestFed card, torn up. I don't know what to wish. You're obviously a man of integrity and good intentions, but you don't sit very well with me, Elmer.
Well, I think if I was to talk to you a half an hour or something like that when you didn't have to be putting on a show, I could do a lot of convincing.
You're accusing me of showbiz?
Yes.
Do you not think I'm genuine, sincere, honestly provocative?
Yes, I think that's what I'm saying. That's show business, isn't it? I think that's part of your job. I think you look like a reasonable, sensible guy too, and know and that you're not that happy with the snowman.
My thanks to Elmer Knudson. I'll be back after the break.
I love the music. It's so great. Well, there you go. That was an episode of Webster from January 1981. And like we're seeing in the comments, that could be a conversation. That is conversations that we're having today. So why did I decide to show you that? Well, I have this idea that if you continue doing the same things over and over and expecting different results, you're insane. And I really think that after this much time passing and as much the shit end of the stick that we've seen the West get in this Confederation, I think it's time we finally start doing something different. Some people think that we should just do everything we can to fix what we have, to fix Confederation. I don't believe that's possible. And I could do an entire episode to tell you why. But just to sum it up, you look at some of the things that Elmer was talking about and Bob McClelland were talking about, the problems between the East and the West way back then in 1981. The problems exist today. And there's been a multitude of people who've tried to fix it. There's been people who campaigned federally saying we're going to fix this relationship. Like I said before, this culminated in the Reform Party under the leadership of Preston Manning with the mandate to bring the West into Confederation. The slogan was the West wants in. We want into Confederation. We want to be equal partners. We want to join and participate. And even that didn't work. It hasn't worked. So why wouldn't we want to do something different to fix it? Now, there is something that can be done different. And it actually, if you set aside the emotional response to a referendum on Alberta independence, if you set aside the emotional response, the logical conclusion is, if we're going to change anything in this province or in this country, we need leverage to do it. And we have never had leverage. Alberta started to gain some leverage when the economic powerhouse of the country was moving from central Canada, from Ottawa to Alberta. And Pierre Elliott Trudeau did not like that. Boom, national energy program, and wiped us out. Now it's the same kind of thing. Alberta is doing pretty well. We're an economic powerhouse. We're technology giants within Canada. And what does the East do when they need to accomplish something? They decide to use Alberta as the sacrificial lamb again. They're going to have a trade war with the United States like a bunch of idiots, instead of just securing our borders and contributing to continental security like we should. Their answer is to put excise tax on Alberta energy. That's going to kill us. That will destroy our economy. And they know it, but they don't care because we've never been an equal partner in this confederation. Right from the very, very beginning. 1904, Clifford Sifton delivered a speech in the prairies as he was trying to court Alberta and Saskatchewan to join confederation. And he said, I paraphrase, I've said this before, I should memorize it. He said, we and all Canadian patriots, meaning those in the East, wish for the prairie provinces to join this confederation so that the great trade of the prairies can be used to build up our factories and enrich our lives in every conceivable way. Clifford Sifton, the Minister of the Interior, the guy charged with settling the prairies, did so because the East wanted the resources. After it happened, that's exactly what happened. Farmers were forced to sell their wheat in one place. They were made to pay shipping both ways across the country. They were only allowed to buy farm equipment and seeds and whatnot from the East. They weren't allowed to trade with the United States. And the list goes on and on and on. We need to do something different. We need to get out from underneath the thumb of a government that we have no control in. There's this whole idea, no taxation without representation. You tell me being taxed almost 67% overall as an average Canadian citizen, and your federal vote meaning literally nothing because the vote is decided by the Manitoba border. You tell me if that's something that we should continue to live under. Now, it is possible, I don't think probable, but it's possible we can fix these things and remain. We need leverage. An independence referendum in Alberta is the only leverage that we have. If you disagree with me, please put it in the comments and tell me what other leverage we could possibly have, because I tell you, there's no way Eastern Canada will give up the dominance and the control they have over this country unless there's some very significant leverage. If you want Alberta to be an independent republic and chart its own course and manage its own affairs and negotiate our own trade deals and all those things, have our own military, which we could do, by the way, because, coincidentally, we send about the same amount east and don't get anything back as what the entire Canadian military budget was in 2019. If you want that to happen, we need a referendum on independence. That is the legal pathway to do it. If you want to join the United States, if you think it would be great for Alberta to be a 51st state, the first step is independence. You have to be an independent sovereign nation to negotiate that kind of relationship with another country. And that's actually part of the United States law too. They can't negotiate with countries that or states that aren't sovereign. So if you want that, we need a referendum on independence. And then we need another referendum on Alberta 51. Any of these paths, you're free to debate and talk and plead your case and try and bring people with you to your destination, but they all have the same precursor. And it's a referendum on Alberta independence. Right now, there's some people that think Danielle Smith is going to save this province. And while I don't believe it's probable, it is possible. But even if Alberta took control of all of the things that we can take control of right now, immigration, policing, pension, tax collection, and employment insurance, if we took all of those things and repatriated that $27 or $35 billion a year that we send away, we would still be subjects of the crown and subject to the whim of Ottawa. We need to change it. If you want to help change it, go to www.albertaprosperityproject.com and read about it. Become a member, donate, do whatever you have to do, volunteer. We got to pursue that referendum. And like I say, if you have any other ideas on how we can accomplish these things and fix the problems that we have that have obviously existed since the early 80s. I mean, you just saw it. Elmer Knudson was literally talking about exactly the same problems we have today. Bob McClelland was talking about exactly the same problems we have today. It's been 46 years since those conversations, and nothing has changed. It's time for some change. Anyway, I'm going to log off here. We're going to be back in a little while. I'm not sure exactly how long. Dr. Davidson he's a little bit behind, so we're waiting for that, but we will be on tonight with Dr. Gary, talking about the report that he delivered to the Premier regarding the Alberta government's handling of COVID-19. Very significant document that we've been waiting for a couple years. So please come back and join me for that. But grab some popcorn, grab a drink, order a pizza from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta, because we have the best pizza ever, and we deliver. Whatever you got to do, go ahead and do it. And I will be back before you can say the Independent Republic of Alberta. See you soon.